Now, my good friend Bill Cosby is a good man. I've known him a long time. But one of us drugged and raped dozens of women, and one of us fought against it. Now, Bill's a good man, but one of us penetrated many, many unconscious women, and one of us has always said, fucking unconscious women is not a good idea. Now maybe, just maybe, it's just me, but I believe my good friend Bill's wrong for those decisions.
So what Seth's getting at is the fucking fact that Joe Biden is comparable to Bill Cosby in the sense that he's responsible for some fucking reprehensible acts, and yet for some reason Bernie keeps calling him his good friend. Which,
well, let me just say this. Joe Biden is a friend of mine. I've known him for him.
My good friend Bill, one of us. Have sex with women against their will. And one of us said that's wrong.
Now maybe it's just me, but I happen to think that rape is bad. And my good friend Bill tends to think that it's a good idea. I do not. I don't.
The war in Iraq turned out to be the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of this country. As Joe well knows, we lost 4,500 brave troops. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died. We have spent trillions of dollars on that endless war, money which should go into healthcare and education and infrastructure in this country. Joe and I listened to what Dick Cheney and George Bush and Rumsfeld had to say. I thought they were lying. I didn't believe them for a moment. I took to the floor. I did everything I could to prevent that war. Joe saw it differently.
Vice President Biden.
You know, I'm the guy. You know me. I'm the guy. I'll tell you something, Mac. Back in the day, we would take walks around the duck pond with our sweetest, and we didn't take no for an answer back then, Jack. Let me tell you, Corn Pop was a bad dude. Anyway, we can go on like this for a long time, but the moral of the story is that fucking Joe Biden needs to be called out on all the fucking heinous, absolutely abhorrent bullshit that he's done, which includes being for the drug war, includes being in favor of cutting social welfare programs, being in favor of the Iraq war, which slaughtered fucking perhaps millions of people, among other fucking wars. I mean, just his record is despicable, and for whatever reason, Bernie Sanders says, he's a good friend of mine and all that shit. And I'm sick of it, for one.
Yeah, it's painting. That's the thing is, like, when you're trying to point out these things in the way that Bernie does by being like, polite and nice about it and just being like, this is wrong. I think it's wrong, but one of us happens to think it's right. Well, you kind of make it seem like it's like we have different opinions. It's just a differing opinion, But he's a good friend. He's a good man. I like Joe, but we just have different opinions on this stuff. That's what it makes it sound like. It's like, no, you can't just make it seem like make light of it and make it seem like Joe's a good guy that just has a bad opinion, that you don't agree with, and you guys just have differing opinions. You have to make it clear this motherfucker is a terrible fucking person, or he's made terrible fucking decisions over and over again for fucking 40, 50 years that he's been in politics. So you can't just say my good friend, my good friend Joe, who's a good guy, blah blah. You can't do that, because then you're legitimizing. You're making it seem like he isn't bad for what he did, or it wasn't a shitty politician, that he just made a couple of mistakes, and that you called out better, that you called ahead of him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make it seem like, no, he's been consistently doing horrible, evil bullshit in politics his entire life. And I think it's fucking horrid, and anyone that knows these things that he does would also agree that it's fucking horrendous. I mean, that's...
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean,
yeah.
If you are legitimizing bullshit, and absolutely, in the case of wars and in the case of mass incarcerations and the people who are impacted by that, you are impacting the political and social and economic landscape of this country and elsewhere in ways that are barbaric. If you're Joe Biden and you're pro-war and you're pro-mass incarceration and you're pro the war on drugs and you're pro-cutting welfare programs, like, you are violently impacting people's lives. And the way that I guess it's just the like politics as usual. It's like, there's that very famous Noam Chomsky quote. If every president since Eisenhower was put on trial the way the Nazis were, they'd be hanged and shot. Like or executed or whatever the fuck he said. But it's like, it's true. They've committed war crimes. But everybody is so complicit in murderous, horrible, despicable crimes against humanity that if you start taking one of these motherfuckers into account, you got to take everybody into account. So that's why it's like, George W. Bush should be fucking put on trial as a war criminal. But then you have to put Barack Obama on trial as a war criminal. Then you'd have to put, we'll go back. Bill Clinton's a fucking war criminal. I mean, who is the oldest living president right now? Jimmy Carter? Jimmy Carter fucking supported death squads in El Salvador. That's war crimes. And so now Donald Trump is obviously a fucking war criminal. So, I mean, it's like, every single fucking one. And, I mean, if you go further and you say, well, then who are the people in political positions of influence who supported this shit? And it's like, well, you're complicit too. Just because you're not the head honcho doesn't mean you didn't support this shit. So somebody like Joe Biden, for example, because the Iraq War is the most memorable and I guess most recent and prolific atrocity in American history right now, in global history, as a matter of fact, that invasion, if you supported that, you fucking need to be held accountable. Because, and so it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, I've talked to you about this before, just like how frustrating it is to have somebody like Bernie Sanders, who has been on the right side of history his fucking entire career, have to sort of capitulate and be on stage and say, Joe Biden's my friend before he fucking attacks his positions. No, Bernie Sanders should be on there on that fucking stage saying Joe Biden is a reprehensible human being. And on top of that, his fucking brain is melting. And if you put him up against Donald Trump, you are fucking asking for 4 more years of Donald Trump. There's no polite way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the other thing too, is like, not only does he have to like just get a lot more harsh on Biden as far as like, hey, this motherfucker has done wrong things, but also like, that is another strategy that has to be started, like it has to be done now, is that he has to make a very clear and concise point of why Joe Biden is he's unelectable. He will not win against Trump. And Bernie has to make that point and make that very clear that, look, if you are voting for Biden, because that is the biggest thing. I'm telling you right now, between Bernie and Biden, the biggest thing that everyone's going to Biden for, it's not policy. I mean, some people are, but it's not just policy or like who they like, blah, blah. It's that people are getting scared now that it's just Biden and Sanders, and people just think that Biden has the better shot at it because that's what MSNBC always, without MSNBC, CNN, any of them, that's what they'll all tout without regarding any of the polls, any of the ground game, any of the grassroots movement that Bernie Sanders has behind him, any of the enthusiasm, any of the $50 million in just individual donations towards him, the fact that Joe Biden, like, they are making everyone think that Joe Biden's the candidate that's the safer pick to beat Trump, and that there's so many people that are just anyone that can beat Trump, who's the best choice, and they think they're scared that Bernie's not the best choice, even though all these things I just named go against that thought process. But also, you just say like, no, look, not only do I have a better shot at it as is, but once they get into the actual general election, Joe Biden is literally suffering dementia, and there's no chance that this guy will even come close to beating Trump. I mean, I'm telling you, it's gonna be worse than Hillary. Hillary won the popular vote. Joe Biden will not win the popular vote even. It'll be worse than Hillary.
He might win the popular vote just because there's more registered Democrats in this country. But at the same time, I mean, it is like, it's the thing is that with Hillary, it was like, okay, I think Hillary is disgusting, untrustworthy, and fucking evil, but I don't think she's incompetent. Joe Biden is a joke. He's a fucking joke, and he has been for his entire political career. He's riding out on name recognition because he's associated with Barack Obama.
I don't like him. I love him, and it's a mutual thing.
That's fucking it. Everything else is a joke. And it's like we said in the episode 5, just now, the one we just recorded. It's, if you look at the way the media ignore his gaffes, and not just his gaffes, but just the ridiculous bullshit that he says. Dog-faced pony soldier, almost calling some guy fat ass, challenging some guy to do push-ups and run, talking about fucking corn pop, and fucking, hey, Esser, get off that fucking, get off that board, or I'm going to pull you off that board. Like, all this, like, crazy, incoherent shit that he says, on top of all the gaffes, not being able to recall people's names, not being able to complete a sentence, not recalling fucking, Jesus Christ, the Declaration of Independence. I mean, just, like, it's unreal.
Can you imagine, AJ, first fucking debate, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump? In the first 10, 20 minutes, Joe Biden's going to be sitting there and be like, I'll tell you what, Jack, when I was... me and our president, Trump's just going to come off right there, like, this guy doesn't even know who our president is. This guy doesn't even, his mind is melting. This guy does not even understand or realize who Obama was. He can't remember shit. He's going to fucking destroy him. Trump is just going to like call him out and run circles around him and make a mockery. I mean, Trump is horrendous. He's a fucking horrible human being, and he's not, in my opinion, he's not. I've had people argue with me like that. He is a very unintelligent man, but what he's good at is really getting under people's skin and sticking to people in the way that a fucking playground bully would, of just like, he's just very quick with. I don't even know what the right word would be of what Trump does to people, but like Trump would annihilate Joe Biden. If Trump was annihilating Christie and Jeb Bush and Rubio, what is he going to do to a senile old man?
The thing is that like the reason Trump was successful is exactly, it's like the whole arguing with idiots scenario. Doesn't matter how much you know, if you have a fucking idiot that you're arguing with, you're in a position where it doesn't matter what kind of facts you throw at them. They can just, it bounces off of them and they just keep going and going and going. That's Trump's technique. Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, you had people like Rubio who seemed like a sort of like young up and coming safe bet for the fucking Republican Party. But he's a robot. And that's like Chris Christie exposed him when he was like, you're fucking repeating the same shit over and over again. Oh, and then
I love
Rubio
that.
He started doing it again.
You see, everybody, I want the people at home to think about this. That's what Washington, D.C. does. The drive-by shot at the beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then the memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him. See, Marco, the thing is this. When you're president of the United States, when you're a governor of a state, the memorized 30-second speech where you talk about how great America is at the end of it doesn't solve one problem for one person. They expect you to plow the snow. They expect you to get the schools open. And when the worst natural disaster in your state's history hits you, they expect you to rebuild their state, which is what I've done. None of that stuff happens on the floor of the United States Senate. It's a fine job. I'm glad you ran for it, but it does not prepare you for president of the United States.
Chris, your state got hit by a massive snowstorm 2 weeks ago. You didn't even want to go back. They had to shame you into going back. And then you stayed there for 36 hours, and then he left and came back to campaign. See, those are the facts. Here's the bottom line. This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
The memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the reason why this campaign.
So it's like, so that fucking happened, but Donald Trump would go unscripted on stage and just start shit talking and saying things. When they booed him, when the crowd fucking booed him at that one debate, he fucking pointed out, there was like, there's the donors. That's all those.
Those are all Jeb's donors.
Yeah, that's all Jeb's donors. Like, I mean, he fucking. Bernie should have done that when Bloomberg's crowd was shitting on him and booing him for saying that a literacy program's a good thing. Bernie should have been like, yeah, your fucking tickets cost at least $1,750 at the lowest. I know who the fuck's out in that audience. That's what Bernie should have said. I know who the fuck's out there, and he didn't. And the reason, it's like the whole arguing with idiots thing. It's like, look, I don't care how high Liz Warren's IQ is. But when he goaded her into fucking when he got her to take that DNA test, it's like I could have told her
Jesus
she
Christ.
didn't have any fucking native DNA. I could have told her that. That's some stupid bullshit white people say. I'm Turk and I'm fucking blah. That's some white people bullshit. Everybody says that. It's not true.
Every fucking white person I've ever met is part German, part Irish, with a little bit of Cherokee in them. Every fucking white person I've ever met is those three things. Mostly German and Irish, and then a little bit of Cherokee in them. I don't know. My great-great-grandpa was apparently part Cherokee. For the most part, I'm German and Irish. That's it. Of course she doesn't fucking have Cherokee or any fucking Native American in her. Yeah. The fact that she got goaded into that so easily, knowing it wasn't even like, oh, she got goaded into proving herself right. No, she was wrong. Like, why would you do that? And he'll run circles around her like that. You know what Bernie's going to do?
Imagine what he's going to do to Biden.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Trump's going to do the same thing to Biden, if not worse, because Biden isn't intellectually capable anymore. I mean, Biden used to be kind of quick, actually. Joe Biden, he used to actually have decent debating skills against Republicans. He's always been a fool in the Democratic Party.
Morons. Against fucking Sarah Palin. Against fucking idiots.
He was good against actually Paul Ryan, too. And Paul Ryan wasn't dumb. I mean, Paul Ryan knew how to he's a horrible human being, but he knew how to do shit. And Joe Biden actually has pretty good debates against people like Paul Ryan, where he would cut him down. But he's not there anymore. So even if he had that, which he doesn't, I mean, it was only moments. I'm not saying he was always he has to actually care about the values that he's trying to espouse and not be a Republican himself, first off. But that's the thing is, he's not mentally there anymore. It's just the fact that he's just cognitively declining. And he's not there. He can't do that. So it doesn't even matter.
And it's I there's a part of me that's I understand that the media, their job is to uphold the status quo. So they are, of course, going to look at Joe Biden as the status quo candidate and try to make sure that he gets it in. But those people that are doing that, working for the media, they aren't stupid people. Like Rachel Maddow, for example, is I think a fucking Rhodes Scholar.
Oh, she's very.
Then again, so is fucking Bill Clinton. And I think Pete Buttigieg is too. So I guess psychopaths are fucking Rhodes Scholars. But the thing is that they're not dumb. But the thing is that what you have to take from this is that in the back room, these people are flipping the fuck out. This is the guy. There's no fucking way. Dogface Pony Soldier guy is the guy. Corn Pop is the guy. This guy with all these videos of him smelling kids' hair. This is the fucking guy. So it's they aren't idiots, but they have to fucking suit up every day. They have to fucking get out there and they have to support Joe Biden. That's what's hilarious to me. And so it's if I'm thinking of this from just the perspective of a gadfly who likes to just watch fucking shit happen, I'm thinking of this is fucking hilarious. If they do fuck Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, which, we'll talk about the numbers in a second, but if they do that, the media is going to have to, or the media are, I should say, it's that there are more than one. So the media are going to have to sit there and try to pretend like he's a fucking decent alternative to Trump. And it's going to be hilarious because they're going to be bullshitting the entire time. You can look up all the videos of Biden's gaffes or the dumb shit that he's fucking said. And it's like I've been saying, I'm sorry, I'm blabbering on because I've had some wine and I'm fucking just passionate about this shit.
No, go for it.
They've seen those videos too.
Yeah. No, that's the funny part. It's
fuck, this is the guy.
I mean, what is the difference between all it means that literally Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, just whoever, what's his name? That fucking Chris Cuomo. All those people, they think he's a fucking joke or he's just has dementia, old ass moron. But it's no different than every right-wing pundit that had to suck it up with Donald Trump. It's literally identical with that, where they're just this guy's a fucking joke. But then they had to go in there, they're the Democrats, huh? Fucking crazy.
I don't know. I would say it's different. I would say that the right-wing commentators really do think Trump is great. They do. Sean Hannity and those motherfuckers, they like Trump.
Well, yeah,
They
Hannity
think
does.
they think he's a savvy businessman and he's successful and he's making America great. Like, they believe that. That's the thing about the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. The Republican Party, they are actually fanatics. They believe that shit.
Yes.
They get into power and they try to do as much crazy shit as they can while they're there. Democrats only care about getting elected. They don't actually have any ideology or view or sort of political compass, moral political compass that guides them in a direction trying to get shit done. They are specifically there to take PAC money, donor money, go to fundraisers, and get into power. And then once they get into power, their entire goal is just stay in power. Fucking Republicans, They believe in what they're saying. They believe in racial purity, and they believe fucking in gays shouldn't get married, and that abortion's murder, and that we need to bomb the shit out of anybody darker than a brown paper bag. Like, they believe that shit. That capitalism is the greatest thing ever. So it's like you're facing a religion. And so, like, when you look at like the political commentators in the liberal media versus the conservative media, I think, even though I hold the liberal media in so much contempt and think they are disgusting and fucked up and horrible propagandists, I know when they go home and they fucking fill that little glass with ice and they fill it up with fucking scotch and they're sitting there in that dark room with their fucking tie pulled loosely, they're like, what the fuck have I done? What's gonna happen? Fucking Sean Hannity goes home whistling Dixie. He fucking loves it.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Like I've thought that too forever, and it is infuriating. I've talked to some left wingers or Democrats, coworkers, friends, and I have people like at this point now. All media is bullshit. So I've had people be like, they're all just as bad, if nothing else. CNN and MSNBC are worse, whatever, and like that's what I was trying to point out to them. It's like, I mean, somewhat they're the same, like they are the same in many ways, but I was like, the difference though, I guess, is that like, yeah, like the one is just being paid by the big power, by the big money and power to say what they want them to say, while the people that are saying it are probably like, yeah, this is fucking bullshit and horrible, but whatever. This is how I get into being a media figure and staying in power, or this is how I stay as a politician. But like, yeah, the Republican Party, I mean, in Fox News, I mean, it's like, yeah, like that, those people are all actual fanatics. They're all actually crazy assholes that are just like, hell yeah, that's how it should be. And it's like, well, that's, one is obviously worse when it inspires this, like, this urge and this fear and this, like, religious mindset that you said, I mean, and that's not saying that they're all Christian. It's saying like that they all, in the same way that religion has this cult mentality of staying in the same bubble together and no matter what, sticking with that ideology. That's what the right wing has with their politicians and their news outlet of Fox News and the Ben Shapiro's and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, left wing, I mean, fuck. Yeah, like you said, the Democrats in power, people like Rachel Maddow and Chris Cuomo, whatever, all of them, they like where they're at. They're getting paid a lot of money to stay in power and have a voice and be in power. So they will just say whatever.
I'm saying Democratic politicians too. Like, I'm not saying just the media is. I'm saying, like, when you look at Republicans.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's so like they both act as gatekeepers of information, obviously, but at the same time, it's like when I'll keep using Sean Hannity as an example. I guess I almost said Chris Tucker. That's hilarious. Tucker Carlson. The opposite. It says he says shit that he genuinely believes in. I mean, he'll appear on talk shows and shit. I can't remember when this was, and this he said he would call Middle Eastern people savages and say really, like, I think he called them monkeys at one point, just like really racist, fucking horrible shit. Even though as of late he has said some reasonable things about foreign policy as far as permanent warfare and whatnot.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, not to like normalize it, but Tucker Carlson is a lot better than Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity is my prime example of like that motherfucker is just a Daffy Duck fucking whack motherfucker. Like, I'm telling you. So for a brief moment, I had a Twitter account that I was gonna call Blake Moonberg, and run as I was gonna have a fake presidential campaign as Mayor Moonberg and offer I don't know, just sort of make fun of the racism of the Bloomberg campaign and offer things like the Plessy versus Ferguson voting plan. Anyway, so the thing about Sean Hannity is I would follow his Twitter account. And he would post things like, here's a fucking alternative form of firearm for people who can't get firearms. No background checks. Like, and it's like this fucking, it's like, it looks like a toy gun. It looks like it looks like a real gun painted orange. It looks like a Desert Eagle painted orange. And it fucking shoots out like a ball of shit at like somebody. Like, it looks like a paintball, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a gun. It won't kill anybody. You don't need a fucking permit for it, and it'll fuck somebody up. And Sean Hannity is just like, he to the point where, like, it was funny. I was looking through his tweets. I just thought it was hilarious. He had somebody in his Twitter feed asking him, like, hey, I'm a fan and all. I'm not trying to be confrontational, but, like, do you have some kind of financial interest in this, like, product? Because, like, Sean Hannity's, like, shit was just, like, littered with this fucking weird toy gun. I'm telling you, it was like I can't remember what the fuck it's called, but it was I'm telling you. So yeah, they're just unhinged. So I guess, like, back to what I was saying is, it's like I think with the Biden situation, the quote unquote liberal media has to at least be like, Jesus Christ, like, this fucking guy, this is the guy, this early onset dementia fucking psycho is the guy. This guy talking about corn pop in fucking Esther on the fucking on the diving board, all the straight dog-faced pony soldier, all the shit that he said, they have to be like, this is, but with Trump, even though there are these, like, never Trumpers or whatever, which we know they're full of shit, they fucking voted for Trump. Donald Trump represents pretty much like what the consensus on the Republican Party is. They don't like immigrants. They like war. They like big business. They simultaneously think that that's going to bring jobs to the United States. They like tax cuts for the rich. And I mean, when you talk about Trump supporters, you have to differentiate, because it isn't just a monolithic base. But as far as, like, his elite supporters, they like that shit. And they fanatically like that shit. So it is kind of like, not to knock Christianity at all, because, there's socialistic values in the Sermon on the Mount and whatnot. But if you look at the practitioners of fanatic Christianity, that sort of evangelical fanaticism, it does appear that right-wing ideology, or at least those political positions, that they do sort of branch out from that you believe in such a devout way in whatever your interpretation of the Gospels is as a right-winger, Jesus Christ CEO, you fucking believe in that so adamantly that it only follows that you would have an equal fanatic approach to politics. And I think whereas there's a lot of divisions on the left is notorious for its partisan politics. Like, they're like, even on the left side of the spectrum, there are so many divisions and so many disagreements and whatnot. The right's pretty much monolithic. The right's pretty much one big block.
Yeah. Well, because again, I mean, it's that's the issue with it, though. It's like, that's why the right always is good at winning, is because they are monolithic. But it also just, like, on its, like, surface, though, it's basically, you can see how it's like, okay, the left, they all have kind of some different views. They all are using their individual critical thinking skills, or they all have, like, these different thoughts on this or this or this. Whereas the right wing, yeah, it is a religion where it's like, if God says, and when I say if God says, that pretty much is just like, if Sean Hannity does, if Tom Cotton does, if Donald Trump does, it basically is like a shift at all times. Because, I mean, yeah, it's not even like, they have these hardcore same values. I mean, they do on certain subjects, but, like, their value system can shift with the wind. As soon as, like, one prominent or a couple prominent Republicans think one thing that completely is opposed to the way that they thought 3 days ago, all of a sudden they're like some beautiful fucking movement of, like, when you see those, You see those videos of like 100,000 birds in the air that all like move in this like perfect coalescing form, and none of them touch each other in the sky. They just move in this perfect fucking like, one side of the whole blob moves and the other side just like coalesces perfectly. That's what the Republican Party does. They don't have values per se with a lot of the stuff they think that they do. They just, as soon as like one entity starts moving one way, they're like, "Oh, we think the deficit is horrible. We need to fucking fight back. This is insane that we have this giant deficit, blah, blah, blah." Oh, Trump's in office and he's racking up the deficit. The deficit's fine. Don't even talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't even talk about the deficit. It's cool. It's fine. It's going up more than ever. Whatever. It's fine. Doesn't even affect the economy. It's cool. Actually, it makes the economy better when you have a giant deficit, really. Or, Obama's, I'm not even going to go on with it because it's just insane. But like, it basically like they will just transform with each other in a non-critical thinking, individualistic way sometimes that is so mind-blowing that it is in that same religious type atmosphere of thought where there is no individual critical thinking, where there's different sects there's different, partisan groups all over the whole spectrum of their side. It's just like, here's what that side thinks, so that's what you think if you're on that side. And they will defend to the end. Everyone I've ever talked to that's on that side, for the majority, 99% of them, something that they espoused 2 years ago, that their entire party espoused 2 years ago, is completely flip-flop now for them, and they'll espouse the completely 180 opposite argument 2 years later, and they'll make it seem like it's always been their argument, and it's just crazy to me.
Right. And I guess I should correct myself as far as like saying that the right is monolithic. I should say exception is libertarians. And libertarians, at least, they do value civil liberties, but they don't go far enough. They stop just short of being an anarchist. And the most important part about being an anarchist is not that you say that the state is illegitimate. It's also that you say markets enslave people. So anarchism is inherently anti-capitalist. So It's like when you are a libertarian, like you're saying, what we just need to do is not have any government. We'll just deregulate business. It's like, well, who the fuck do you think runs the government? Like, who the fuck do you think owns all this shit? Like, the fucking reason everything's shitty is because of a bunch of corporations running shit. So I will extend this olive branch as somebody who has anarchist sympathies. Fucking go the extra step and say the market is bad too. Like, just do that.
Yeah, just think into it a little bit. Just be like, well, yeah, our government's corrupt by, being bribed by the wealthy. But also, there should be no regulations on the corporations that are run by the wealthy. Like, motherfucker, that makes no fucking sense. Like you said, go the extra step. Just take the extra step forward. Just like, yeah, exactly. They are children. Like, that's the thing is, like, Republicans, I respect almost. I won't go that far. But Republicans at least make more sense to me because it's such a religious, like cult-like mindset of like, this is my fucking belief. Like, that is it. Jesus fucking walked on water and gays shouldn't be married. That's it. That's how I fucking feel. That's how it is. But libertarians though, they just fucking, they don't, it's like they get right up to the line, like you said, as anarchists, where we have like anarchist sympathies for them, but they just get right up to the line and then like decide to stop thinking as soon as they get to like a certain point. They're like,
yeah, because your fucking brain shut off as soon as you got to that point. Like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. Right. Like, how do you not see like that? Like, oh, well, if all the wealthy and corporations own our politicians, and that's what makes our politicians so corrupt and our government corrupt by nature, and that's why we hate the government and our politicians. That's why we should also have unmitigated capitalistic wealthy people that run the country or do what they want. Sorry, not run the country, because then they'd be going the extra step. Right. But yeah, how do you see one as the other, and then stop short of and see that like, oh, well, then you're unmitigated, complete, laissez-faire, no regulations, let capitalists go and do their thing is what is the whole reason why our government is corrupt. Like, that is the whole
Well,
reason.
It's funny though, because if you look at just like history as far as like political ideologies go and different social movements and whatnot, anarchism is socialism. Like, it's like elsewhere, if you say you're an anarchist, it's like, okay, you are a radical socialist who believes that we need to have pretty much like an egalitarian society where we all control everything without any sort of illegitimate authority whatsoever. Like, you have a system that has to be so deeply organized that, you know, it is the most directly democratic system that you can have, which to me sounds great, but on paper it sounds great. But it's like, okay, well, at this point in human history, you do need, I think, an element of bureaucracy, unfortunately. Like, I mean, you don't want to have debates constantly about where the fuck water's coming from or electricity's coming from or how the fuck we're going to do this or that.
Right,
so
right.
It's like, so while I do have anarchist sympathies, especially as like a syndicalist and an IWW member and whatnot, I also think that, to me, anarchism stands as a process. Communism, to me, is the, you know, not Stalinism, not fucking anything we've seen before, not any kind of authoritarian regime or whatever, but communism to me means workers owning the means of production, democratically controlling resources, and basically owning our lives. So that's the goal. Anarchism, to me, is sort of the way that we get there. We break down illegitimate authority in order to get to that point. So with libertarians, it's fucking bizarre that it's like libertarians are sitting there saying, you know what we need to do? You know, these corporations that fucking run everything, because they're not dumb. A lot of these libertarians, they understand that fucking big business controls shit, but they just think if you deregulate them, then they'll fucking collapse. The ones that should collapse will collapse. The ones that shouldn't. And everything will be hunky-dory. And I guess like it's like you were saying, like with Republicans, at least when I talk to Republicans, you know, Republicans have a lot of cognitive dissonance. If you go like I'm telling you, like I have two friends here who are Republicans, and one of them is a good person. and he is he's a sweetheart. He takes care of his parents. He has two elderly parents. He's in his 50s, I think. And, you know, I love the guy. I think he's a great person. I think he would give his life for people, and he works hard, and, you know, anyway, he's fucking conservative for whatever reason. He's conservative in a masochistic sense of like, hey, I could be successful if I wanted to be, but I'm not. That really kind of sad situation. He might have libertarian leanings, but if you read magazines like Reason, like if you look into like libertarian publications, they aren't talking about police state authoritarianism and shit like that. They're talking about how hostile they are towards fucking public schools and healthcare and shit like social welfare programs. Like they are just extremely hostile towards anything that helps people. And therefore, I would place American libertarians with the fascists.
Yes. Oh yeah, American libertarians, like that is, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, they're more so in like this, like, oh, it's like that, I don't know, like almost like Darwinistic, you know? It's a Darwinistic like approach where it's like that, like, oh, well, if you can't do that, fuck off, go die. I don't give a shit. Like, but like they shouldn't run our fucking lives. And it's like, motherfucker, who is running your life or forcing you to do anything by having like 2 cents come out of your fucking paycheck so that someone doesn't fucking die from not getting their insulin that they need? Like, what the fuck is, like, that's the problem. It's like, you're right. Like, because there is that cognitive dissonance in the Republican, just the conservative religious type people that aren't the same as libertarians, I guess, is that, yeah, it's more of like this, like, this cult mindset of this, like, cognitive dissonance, whereas libertarians just are fucking, like, ruthless, like, almost. When you start explaining things to them, they're like, well, I mean, that's not our government's problem, or that's not my problem. Like, that's your problem. It's like, all right, well, then, you know, you almost want to, like, I don't wish this upon anyone. That's the difference between us. But it's like, with that mindset, it's like you almost want to just say to every one of these people that like have the same mindset when you get through talking with them, you just want to say, like, motherfucker, I hope you lose your job tomorrow, lose your insurance, and then come down with some fucking serious cancer that could be prevented if you only could get the treatment that you need, but you can't get it because you don't have insurance. Like, I hope that happens. I mean, I don't, but like, that's what you almost want to. It's like, if that's the world you want to live in, then
that bad trip that they could experience.
Exactly, the bad trip. Yes, Yes, the bad trip where it's like they realize that like, oh, when it's anything to do with me, I see how important this would be if I only had this social net that kept me from dying from something that's very preventable and wouldn't cost much money in the grand scheme of things at all. But I can't because I don't have a job, which is tied to my insurance, which I don't have now, so I can't do it, even though there's someone that fucking it was worth $100 billion. So yeah, like that's things. I don't want that upon anyone, but like I want them to have that fucking experience of like knowing that is a terrible thing that shouldn't happen, and it can happen. It does happen.
And speaking of healthcare, that goes back to the 2020 Democratic primary, which is now between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And we just want to really see how I did there. We have to talk about the numbers really quick because there's going to be some really there's two ways forward. Okay, and I mean Jacobin had a really good article about this as far as like what Bernie's options are going forward. Look, if we have a just short plurality where he can get 52%, which is something like 1,285 votes, or delegates, I should say. That is okay. That's solid, and that's doable. There's the other way forward, which is just the combined majority, which would be 1,300, 53%. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as what needs to happen numbers-wise. Now, the whole debate now is how do we get there? And in the previous episode, episode 5, we just talked about the fact that we need Warren. Apparently, we need to fucking consolidate the sort of like lefties. Even if Warren is just a nominal lefty, it's just in name only. If the thing is, it's funny. Like it was in another Jacobin article. The idea of Biden as the zombie candidate that was brought back to life recently because of the South Carolina primary. So the thing is that with South Carolina, that's again we've said before, like it's a state he's not going to fucking win. As far as like, if he's a Democratic nominee, Democrats are not going to win South Carolina. So what ends up being the fucking issue is that the media props up this state that doesn't matter. Sorry to say, South Carolina props up this candidate who can't win, and the moderates have consolidated. They are in a position to win this thing, and I mean, the more we look at it, I mean, if you go to predictit.org right now, they're pretty much giving it to Biden. So those numbers, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't even know what to think right now. Like, I am very unsure, to say the least. I mean, I don't think anyone really knows. I think everyone's. It just.
I mean, if he's going to get to 52
seems...
or 53%, like he's going to have to fucking have a different strategy, like we were talking about in the last episode. Like what he's been doing now. Yeah. Well, that and he needs to go after Joe Biden.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to go after Joe Biden. I mean, that's no more. That's how we started the episode off. Like, no more my good friend Joe, very good friend of mine, good guy, but he happens to like bombing brown kids in other countries. I do not. I disagree. It's like you can't start that fucking sentence off of starting a sentence off with my good friend that ends with this guy likes to murder people. I do not. Like, you cannot start off with my friend. It makes it not so bad. He's softening the blows of his own fucking punches. And that's what Bernie has to stop. That's one of the biggest things. He has to just straight up just fucking start swinging at Biden and not care. Not care. Like, he's not your friend right now. He's not your fucking friend. Even if he is, you act like he's not.
Bernie has been going soft on the Democratic, his challengers, this entire time. And I mean, it's a strategy that, look, I mean, it's like we've talked about before. The way that the media treats Bernie Sanders, you can understand why he'd be moderate, why he'd be careful, why he would try to like make sure that he wasn't, trying hurting anybody's feelings or offending anybody. Because the fucking fact is that the media would be like, they already talk about him being grouchy. They're already like, his fucking supporters are mean. Bernie's mean.
Oh yeah.
We don't like. It's like, look, Bernie Sanders didn't call somebody fat ass. Bernie Sanders didn't call somebody dog-faced pony soldier. Bernie Sanders didn't say to somebody, I'm starting to understand why your wife left you. Joe Biden said all of those things within this campaign. So, like, I mean,
Yes.
it's, again, imagine Bernie Sanders even having, like, fucking half of the shit under his belt as far as gaffes and shitty comments that Biden has. The media would never shut the fuck up about it, first of all. And second of all, it would have sunk his campaign. For some reason, Biden's afloat.
Yeah,
so Bernie's
Biden
call
says
that
whatever.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Biden can say whatever the fuck he wants, and no one will fucking call him out or act like it's anything wrong. But Bernie is getting he's getting heat right now for the last couple months because his Twitter, some Twitter followers are saying mean things. His Twitter supporters might not even be his supporters. Most of them are, but his Twitter supporters. That's what the media is attacking. The media, other candidates, just everything is attacking Bernie for some Twitter users of his. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? They're not calling out Biden for any of the shit that he says, or being in early stages of dementia. Yet Bernie's having to answer for just some mean people on Twitter that he has nothing to do with. And by mean, they're basically just saying like, hey, you fucking asshole, you guys are lying. You're lying. Like, that's what the Twitter people are. They're just basically saying like, they'll call out people that are just like completely lying or bullshitting. And they'll be like, hey, you're a fucking rat. You're a snake. You're lying. You're lying. And that's what's mean. That by proxy makes Bernie a divisive and shitty candidate. Are you kidding me?
So it's funny that that it's a serendipitous moment. As we were talking, my friend Rito, he's an organizer down south with the Bernie campaign. Well, he was in Vegas. Now he's on the border of Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. He's in a place called Moline, something like that. Moline, Illinois. Right on the border there. On the river. He's like fucking Huck Finn. So he just sent me this tweet from somebody who I'm not sure who this is, but they've got a check, so it must be legit. In an interview with Rachel Maddow, Elizabeth Warren was notably restrained in noting her policy differences with Joe Biden and called him a decent man in the best way. She spoke much more at length about the online vitriol from Bernie Sanders supporters. That's what I'm talking about, how fucking, they're so mean. If you want me to support poor people, you better be nice. You better be nice to me. Fuck you. And that's and that's exactly what I'm saying about Bernie. They're going to talk shit about you anyway. They're going to call you a communist anyway. They're going to say you're a mean person anyway. They're going to talk shit about your supporters anyway. Go for the fucking jugular. Call out Joe Biden for wanting to cut social welfare programs. Call him out for fucking being pro-Iraq war. Call him out for being anti-union. Call him out for fucking being for the war on drugs and mass incarceration. Call him out on that. And call him out on all the fucking stupid shit he said. And the fact that he's got dementia.
Yeah.
And the fact that if he fucking gets the nomination, Donald Trump's going to take a giant shit on his fucking face and smear it all over him. Bernie has to fucking have the balls.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's the thing is you just have to fucking call it out. It's not hard. Like, that's the problem. That's what makes it so infuriating is that it's so easy right now. It's like you're going against Joe Biden, who is he's not there anymore, with a corrupt past and a corrupt establishment that people hate. People hate the establishment, and a corrupt media that people universally hate now, all on his side. And it would be just so easy if Bernie just started swinging and called this all out. Call it out. Just call it all out. It's like, okay, hey, Biden's mentally and cognitively in decline and not there anymore. The media is all in for him. I wonder why. That's you hate them, right? They're fucking lying. The entire establishment Democratic Party that has gotten us to Trump and where we are, they're all in with him. I wonder why. What's others just reminded me is can't believe Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie and Bernie accepted that endorsement. Bloomberg endorsed Biden. Nothing. Bloomberg is worse than Rogan.
How many fucking sexual harassment suits does Joe Rogan have against him? Huh?
None.
You know what I mean?
None.
Like, I mean, it's how many fucking police officers has fucking Joe Rogan sicked on vulnerable black men? Huh? How many?
None. None.
It's just like it's
Joe Rogan.
That's what I'm saying. The fucking Democratic Party and the liberal establishment and all this shit, they're fucking... I mean, we've said this. My blood pressure's getting up now just thinking about this shit. But we've said this in other episodes. They have no fucking moral high ground, and there's nothing more annoying than fucking pieces of shit with no moral high ground acting like what is it called? Virtue signaling and shit like that. Like, it's
virtue signaling, having alligator... Yeah. Or what is it? Like, alligator tears or crocodile tears or whatever it is.
It's crocodile tears,
yeah. Crocodile tears. I know. As soon as I said alligator tears, I was like, that sounds
alligator
off.
tears
that
are a delicious Louisiana snack.
Now come on down to Louisiana and have some alligator tears.
Come on down to Baton Rouge.
No, exactly. Like that's what I was just pointing this out to a couple people the other night that like were saying, like they were pointing out like how someone would just like get like all like cocky and defensive. Like this is not about politics at all. They're talking about. They're just talking about like how this one person like got all like would always just be like super defensive and no matter what would have to like act like they're right. And someone like pointed at me, they're like, yeah, Seth, you would never like get like I couldn't see you getting like super argumentative and like just like in someone's face about shit or whatever. I was like, well, kinda. I was like, you don't know me enough yet then. I was like, because with politics, I was like, but the difference though, and this is what I told them, and it applies because this is what makes it so fucking infuriating, is it's like if you were a police officer and someone, and not just like one person or two people, but like seemingly everywhere you turn on TV, people you talk to, everywhere are not only opinionated on the idea that like, oh, well, cops actually aren't even allowed to drive their car, or some bullshit like fact, quote unquote, that you know as a police officer is fully bullshit, and then trying to argue with them, and it's like everyone on the news, people you talk to, they all think this, and not only do they think this, but they will argue with you and get fucking crazy and defensive and act like you and start gaslighting you and act like you're crazy. Where it's like, how is it that so many fucking people have this fucking deluded fucking mindset where it's like, yeah, like, so like, yeah, with politics, it's like, yeah, I do get argumentative because it's like, it's literally having a bunch of people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about or do and are just being, you know, shady.
Try to confront you about your fucking bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly. And be like, oh, well, fuck you. This is what the truth is. And it's like, well, that's not at all. And you're just, but yet they're still so cocksure. And it's like, that's the most infuriating thing in the fucking world. Because it's the same thing as gaslighting, where they're basically making you feel like when there's that many people that are all saying the same fucking thing or whatever. And it's like, this isn't an opinion. This isn't opinion. Like, how the fuck are we having an argument right now with everyone? Anyway, yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say.
All right. Well, hey, in the interest of time, let's do like closing statements here. So, I guess like what is to come really, it's going to be fucking tough. Regardless of, you know, whether the outcome is good or bad, we're going to have to fucking bust our asses, especially in the Rust Belt states. And the thing is that, look, we don't have the luxury of being apathetic or complacent. Like, even if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, which is probably going to be the case, he probably won't get the nomination just because if we know how the Democratic Party rat fucks people like Bernie, they just do. That being said, like we've said from the beginning, the movement is not about Bernie. It's about the fact that we have an awakened, articulate, coherent, militant, left-wing, working-class movement now that cannot go away. We cannot allow this to just disappear again. Like, look, after fucking Trump got elected, I'm sorry, where the fuck did all the Bernie people go? You know, we were organizing, we were knocking doors, we were doing shit. What the fuck happened? All of a sudden Trump gets elected and we said fuck it. And I'm guilty of that too. You know, I try to do as much union shit and all that kind of stuff, but we didn't do any community canvassing. You know, I mean, anyway, the point is that if Bernie Sanders gets fucked over, which is going to be the likely case, we need to keep the momentum going, and we better be in fucking Milwaukee and beyond. So that is my closing statement, and Seth, you can make yours.
I mean, I know I'm going to Milwaukee. I mean, we're both going to be there. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be over 1 million people, just over 1 million Bernie people alone. Like, I mean, it's probably a stretch, but like I think it's going to be a large number of people that are going to march to Milwaukee. But yeah, I mean, other than that, all I have to say is that I don't know. That's about it. Yeah. I was about to say something about Joe Biden again, but there's nothing. We've said it. I mean, he's nothing else has to be said except for the entire establishment is backing him, knowing that he'll lose to Trump to get Bernie to keep Bernie from winning. So the entire Democratic Party is already, they're showing their hand. They are compromised, and they would rather have Trump in there because that keeps their power, whether it's the media keeping their power of, if anything, it helps the media out because then they get to go, oh, fucking Trump, right? Or the politicians that get to stay in power or keep their donors rich, which keeps them in power because their donors keep getting the Trump tax cuts, keep business as usual. So they'll keep funneling the money into people like Nancy Pelosi and all these fucking shills. And yeah, so like the fact that that's all happening is already enough. But then with Joe Biden, literally, and this is not like people always say like, oh, Trump is clearly lost his mind, blah, blah. No, Trump's been the same. I mean, yeah, he's getting older, so maybe there are times where Trump seems like he's like the stress with his age and how all the lack of sleep he gets or whatever. There's times where it seems like it gets to him and he really gets fucking stupid.
He's on that extra strength Sudafed.
Yeah, exactly. So there's times where it's like does seem like he's losing his mind. Well, he's already lost his mind, but there's times where it seems like he's going through dementia. But like that's just whatever. He's not. But like people over exaggerate with that. But like it's literally no over exaggeration. That's all I could say, and that's what I'm going to finish on. Is it's no over exaggeration that Joe Biden not only cannot beat Trump, but that he literally is going through the early stages of dementia. Everyone's had grandparents or friends' grandparents that they've known that have started this or are already in the late stages of it. I mean, can you imagine one of these elderly people that you've ever met in your life, whether they're grandparents or friends' grandparents or just old people or what have you, that constantly forget where they're at or just like just don't really what's happening? I don't know what you're talking about. Like not to like mock them, but that's what Joe Biden's on the path to right now. Like, so to even think that he has a chance or that he could do anything that would help the Democratic Party out, it's completely a false narrative in any way. And to think that he's the most electable candidate is insane because that's trying to literally compare a competent person with a cognitive ability still to someone that literally is losing their mind.
All right. On that note, this has been the 6th episode of the Conditions of Our Parole. We will see you next time, and just again, keep fighting.
And always remember to keep your good friends close. People like Harvey, he's a good friend of mine. Yes, he's sexually assaulted and harassed women, but some of us don't think that's right. One of us did that. One of us thinks it's a bad thing, and keep on fighting.
Combat troops out of Iraq, and my son was one of them. I also think we should not have combat troops in Afghanistan. It's long overdue. It should end. And thirdly, I believe that you're not going to find anybody who has pulled together more of alliances to deal with what is the real stateless threat out there. We cannot go it alone in terms of dealing with terrorism. So I'd eliminate the act that allowed us to go into war and not the AUMF, and make sure that it can only be used for what it's intended for, and that is to go after terrorists, but never do it alone. That's why we have to repair our alliances. We put together 65 countries to make sure we dealt with ISIS in Iraq and other places. That's what I would do. That's what I have done, and I know how to do it.
Senator Sanders, 30 seconds.
One of the differences that Joe and I have in our record is Joe voted for that war and helped lead the opposition to that war, which is a total disaster. Second of all, I helped lead the effort for the first time to utilize the War Powers Act to get the United States out of the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen, which is the most horrific humanitarian disaster on earth. And thirdly, let me be very clear, I will do everything I can to prevent a war with Iran, which would be far worse than disastrous war with
Senator
Iraq.
Sanders.